So let me call up the next panel. And your moderator is going to be Diana. If you can please come up. Diana Mpisi is the CEO of Blue Oceans, and she's a host of the program called The Square. Welcome. You're not supposed to hear that, but that's okay. So, over to you, Diana, and let's see what we have in agriculture.
Thank you very much, George, and good morning, everybody. Good morning. I think we'll need a lot more energy in the room today. I know it's the second day, and usually the energy levels are not as robust as the first day, but I think the panels will change this. So I'd like to call my panel forward. And this particular panel, as you can see, and as George said, we're going to talk about the earth, and we're going to look at agriculture and drone technology in agriculture, and if this is a game changer, especially across the continent. And that said, I'd like to call the 4 speakers for this panel. Eric Akwa, CEO of Aquamire Drone Tech, welcome to the stage. I'd also like to call Hamza Benadohu, CEO of Sowit SAS. Eric Rutaisire, CEO of CARIS, UAS, and Giacomo Rambaldi, Senior Program Coordinator, ICTs at CTA. Let's give them a warm welcome. Just very quickly, I know you have their bios, but I think respectfully I'd like to introduce them briefly. As you can see from the program, we have Eric Akwa, who is the CEO of Aquamire Drone Tech, and he's passionate about innovation. In 2017, Eric founded this company, and in Ghana, where the company assembles spraying drones and deploys them to serve agribusiness and farmer cooperatives to address crop protection and fertilization. In 2019, Eric also started Aquamire Robotics in Germany, where he uses drones, robotic arms, and artificial intelligence for wind turbine maintenance and repairs. Eric, thank you for joining the panel.
Thank you.
I would also like to introduce Hamza. Hamza is the co-founder of Sowit SAS, which is a startup that builds decision support tools based on remote sensing that helps the African farmers optimize their most critical operations. Hamza designs and builds long-range autonomous drones that carry multiple sensors tailored to the agricultural sector. His interest in Africa and agriculture led him to use his skills to build algorithms that help farmers reduce their inputs and maximize their yields. Hamza, great to have you on this panel.
Thank you, Diana. Hi, everybody.
I'd also like to introduce Eric Rutaisire, who is the founder and CEO of CARIS, UAS. I hope I pronounced it correctly, Eric.
Yeah. Yes, you did.
CARIS. He has vast experience in research and development and business development. In 2014, he founded this company, CARIS UAS, the first drone company in Rwanda, whose mission is to provide aerial imagery for intelligent decision-making for various industries such as agriculture, mining, infrastructure inspection, health, and construction. Now, the company has expanded and operates in 5 countries across Africa. Eric, great to have you on the panel.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Giacomo Rambaldi, who is the Senior Program Coordinator for ICTs at the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation based in the Netherlands. Mr. Giacomo has 37 years of professional experience in Africa, Latin America, Asia, the Pacific, and the Caribbean, where he has worked with various international organizations. He is a member of the ICT for Agriculture team at the CTA and is coordinating a stream of activities related to the deployment of drone technology in agriculture, including influencing drone governance policy making. Thank you, Mr. Rambaldi, for joining the panel.
Thank you.
And without further ado, I would like to ask my panelists to give a brief introduction. So we're going to just listen to them as they introduce their work, and then we're going to go into specific, sector-specific questions, and we will have a Q&A with you, our audience, to cap this panel. And I would like to start with you, Eric, and if you could just briefly tell us, introductively, what Aquamire's role has been in innovating agricultural production.
Thank you, Diana. I would like to start by saying a very big thank you to ADF 2020 organizers, to Rwanda, to the World Bank, and to CTA for supporting us and giving us the opportunity to be on the panel today. Akwamaya Drone Tech develops unmanned area vehicles and uses them to apply pesticides and fertilizers to field crops and tree crops in Ghana and its neighboring country. Compared to the piloted aircraft, the unmanned area vehicle can focus on small crop fields at lower flight altitudes and perform site-specific farm management services. With precision, with high precision and efficiency than the piloted aircraft. Compared to the backpack sprayer, the UAV or the drone is faster and it's more precise in the application of the product. And currently, we have treated 180,000 hectares of farmland in Africa. In 2018, I'm very proud to say that we helped farmers in Ghana to control the fall armyworm epidemic. And we are also one of the few drone operation companies that is working with pesticide manufacturers to calibrate the pesticides for use for drones in Africa.
Thank you very much, Eric. I'd also like you, Hamza, to introduce SOWIT's role in agriculture since its inception.
Yes. So thank you. First, thank you to the ADF and CTA for having us on this panel. It's great to have this kind of forum in Africa, and I hope it will be the first of a long line. So SOWIT is really born from a frustration. It's the frustration of seeing the African agriculture lag behind the Western agriculture in so much ways. For example, the wheat yields are around 3 tons per hectare in Africa, whereas in the Western countries, it can go up to 6 or 7 tons per hectare, meaning that there are guys that have 10 tons per hectare yields. We have 60% of arable land in Africa, so there is great potential that needs to be optimized. And what Pierre just said in his keynote really talks to me. So 10 billion people to feed by 2050, Africa will be, without a doubt, part of the solution. So, for us, in order to fill this productivity gap, at SOWIT we are tackling the information problem. We think that the African farmer lacks some information, and in order to bring that to him, we're developing decision support tools. So those are tools that are based on satellite imagery, drone imagery, or even ground-based data in order to build algorithms and models that will help the farmer optimize his operation during his season, going from irrigation or fertilization through the harvest date estimation or yield estimation. So we're trying to provide the farmer with models that have a 5% margin of error in order to allow him to really act on his farm and see the heterogeneity of his plot to optimize his inputs.
Thank you very much. And Eric, if you'd also tell us about the impact and the journey of CARIS in agriculture using US technology.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. At CARIS, our first vision was really to look at the challenges that the continent was facing and really customize drones and build them to solve those issues. So we understand the customer requirement, the needs of the specific application, and you try to build a system to help them do that, solve the issues. So in terms of agriculture, in Rwanda, we've worked a lot with farmers in the north, for example, where we, together with partners, we try to calibrate the models to help to try to help them really increase their yield. So, and also we've done a lot of cost-benefit analysis around really understanding the use of drone in serving the farmers, because there is a lot of hype, but as well we need to understand the cost-benefit analysis of really is it cost-benefit to them. So we've done that a lot, and we've started seeing really that impact, that the impact is there, that we have promising results that are showing that actually they can, the smallholder farmer, because in Africa we are more dealing with a smallholder farmer compared to large-scale farming. So trying to bring that solution to customize it to the need of our continent is a key in our journey really at Caris. So so far we have started also expanding this technology and knowledge to other countries of Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Gabon, and in Tanzania we've done some work, in Uganda we've done some work, and we are now really seeing the impact of that technology to the smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Last introductory question to you, Mr. Giancomo. If you could tell us what CTA has been doing to support the introduction of drone technology in countries across the continent.
Yeah, thank you very much. CTA is an international organization based in the Netherlands, and we operate in 79 countries, Sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific. I've been managing a project focusing on drone introduction in Africa, starting in 2016. And we launched a series of calls in 2017, 2018 for young entrepreneurs to apply to benefit from project support. We invested in these selected companies. 11% of the total project budget was given out in terms of seed money for the acquisition of hardware and software. It was a co-funding, so CTA co-funded 60% of the expense, and the rest of the budget went into capacity building, training on piloting drones, obvious exposure to regulations and good practice, data processing, data interpretation, business development, enterprise management, communication, and social media. So fundamentally, we assisted and we nurtured these enterprises in growing and becoming effective on the market. There were questions on the cost and benefit, and we launched 4 research projects in partnership with some of our partners and research institutions or universities. We offered our partners networking opportunities, attendance in conferences, participation as speakers or as expositors at international events. We invested a lot in making sure that our partners would establish a reputation, their reputation online, which counts the most, and build their identity. So we never tried to impose CTA as the leading agency. They were in the forefront, because for us, these entities, these companies have to go on and be self-sustaining once CTA is going to disappear from the scene. Okay? We have published success stories based on their experiences. We provided them alerts. We created a small community on WhatsApp, which is extremely dynamic, where the various members of the more than 40 enterprises now exchange and help each other. We gave them access to another digital community with more than 1,500 members, all dealing with drones for agriculture in developing countries. And we assisted them, and the idea came from them, to establish an international, an industry association of digital operators called Africa Goes Digital, which was incorporated, and which will ensure continuity for the growth of these enterprises without external support from CTA. What is more important is that in 2016 we did a study on the bottlenecks and regulations, disabling regulations or the absence of regulations was one of the key factors, and we sort of facilitated the development of a study which led in January 2018 to the Executive Council of the African Union to recommend the use of drone technology in agriculture across African states. And that then followed with the publication of a document by the African Union detailing the motivations. Yeah, this is in a nutshell what CTA has been doing so far.
Thank you very much. And I would like to just do a deep dive to the panel in terms of your work. And Eric, if you can just start by telling us, if you can backtrack a bit, what inspired you to start Aquamaya, and what have been some of your challenges thus far?
Okay, so in 2017, I walked into a shop in Germany, and then I realized that food crops coming from Ghana were banned from entering Germany. This is because the farmers were applying the plant protection in the wrong way, and so it left traces of residues in the food crops. So I researched into how I could help the farmers in Ghana to overcome this challenge. And with the background of aviation, I realized that the drone technology could help the farmers to apply the product in a way that will only not prevent the food from being burnt, but also that is a bit cheaper than the way they are currently applying the product, and it's also a bit safer and prevent diseases. So this is why I started Aquamaya in 2017 to help the farmers. The challenges that we have had so far is that from 2017 to now, we've been bootstrapping, and we have been trying to raise funds to expand or to scale up our operations, but it has been very difficult, as startups in Ghana. So this is the major challenge that we are facing currently.
Thank you very much. And for you, Hamza, your strength is in the specialization business. But why have you chosen to specialize at SOIT as opposed to diversifying, especially with the work that you do within the agricultural sector?
Yes, so we have decided to choose the agricultural vertical. So we're not a drone service provider or a drone company. Actually, we're more of a data company. So we're trying to really get as much data as we can. It can be from drones. Drones are still central to our operation because when we develop a model, we need to adapt that model to the agroclimatic conditions of Africa, and drones provide us with good resolution. So this is where the drone is in our operation. But in order to scale our solution and to give models that are really give real value to the farmer, we need to develop a real expertise in this field. And we develop this expertise by partnering with agronomical research centers, remote sensing research centers that help us go a step further in our models. And our core business then is take this data and their models in order to provide the farmer with the inputs he needs to see the heterogeneity of his plot and the problems he has on his plots. What is important to see is that there is a difference between providing him with qualitative informations and tackling a specific problem for a specific crop. So providing the farmer with the qualitative information is something that has been done for quite a while. For example, as soon as the satellites with high resolutions have been developed, let's say, vegetation indexes were developed for a long time that gave a good index on how the crop is doing. But the real way you're going to help the farmer optimize and really tackle the problems he has on his crop is by giving him quantitative information. In order to give him this quantitative information, you need to have some strong models that are really calibrated to the fields and to the crops you are working in. So that's why we have chosen to specialize in agriculture in order to develop this competency. But we are also diversifying in a way in our vertical. We are tackling different types of crops, field crops, tree crops. We're also tackling different kinds of problematics. Our goal is to help the farmer throughout his season, going from sowing date, the best sowing date possible, through estimating his yields.
Thank you very much. Eric, my next question is for you. You, on the other hand, your business model is very diversified. Yeah. But if you can just start by telling us what are the type of agricultural activities and sectors that your company sees most potential to work with, and if you can give some examples of some of the most promising applications that you use.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you mentioned, we have diversified our services across many industries, from power line inspection, mining, surveys, and different level of mapping. What we have seen is that there is a level of transferable skills that we have brought from those industries even to the agriculture sector. For example, in the agriculture domain, we are not only doing the crop monitoring, which is really basically what drones are being used for in typical agriculture application, but we have seen where we are starting to use GIS, for example, to do farmers profiling, understanding the boundaries of their crops, understanding how much the expectation of their yield in terms of like the trees that they are planting. We're using GIS for tree counting, in those plots. So we have seen that there is many within the agriculture sector itself. The use of drone can be used for in many ways. So as my colleagues mentioned as well, the spraying abilities there that are there. After doing the crop monitoring, you can do spraying. So all of that we have been able to also participate, and some of those skills are coming from the other industries. So, and one of the most really promising application we've been involved in the agriculture sector is beyond obviously the crop monitoring, is the profiling of farmers. Now in Cote d'Ivoire, we're about to start a huge project there where we are helping a big farm that is planting palm trees, excuse me, in helping them really understand and manage the size of their field. They have a very huge field there, but it was hard for them to manage, even the farmers, how much the input they are receiving, how much they are putting in there. Some of them will not actually put the input they are receiving, they will sell it on the other side. So we have seen a really great potential, because it's one of the biggest challenges that we have here in Africa. We may have all the inputs we have, we can get, but if we are not applying them, if we are not being efficient in the way we are doing it, it becomes hard. So we've been able to add that level of intelligence in the daily operation of those farmers. So we are hoping to continue that across also the continent.
Thank you very much, Eric. Giacomo, my question is for you with regards to the work that your organization does. For the last 4 years, and we saw it briefly on your slide, you've been managing the implementation of the project called Eyes in the Sky Smart Techs on the ground. If you could just give us an idea, a bit more of what this project does and some of the challenges you've faced and what CTA has done to address these challenges.
Well, in my initial presentation, I listed the various activities we have been doing. Indeed, there were challenges. Challenges we faced as a developing agency supporting the entrepreneurs, and challenges the entrepreneurs face themselves. The common challenge everybody has been facing was to deal with regulations, okay? Knowing the regulations. Also in the absence of regulations, that was a challenge. For our operator in Uganda, one of the first ones to own a drone in Uganda, the drone was hauled up for 7 months at the airport to get it out. And of course, as a donor agency, as a development agency, that was a problem to get the project rolling, and they were the first one. Later on, things became easier, but when you are the front runner, I mean, all our partners were the first operators in the specific countries. And also, lack of experience, they were lacking understanding of the potential and pitfalls of the technology. One thing we noted was the absence of agronomic skills within the companies. All these companies were usually companies having a geodetic background, ICTs, and so on, and they were techie guys, but they lacked the agronomic skills. And this is something which we increasingly value when you as a company deal with advisory services in the domain of agriculture. Then there were ecosystem challenges, because when you gather data with drones, you gather a huge amount of data, okay? And if you want to do cloud processing, I mean, the connectivity you have in most of the countries doesn't allow you to do that. And so that was a learning process. And of course, all these challenges were addressed one way or the other. And for example, the challenge of poor connectivity was addressed in accessing locally based softwares which allow to process the data locally. But there was a steep learning curve to learn how to use this data processing software, and so we hired a German company to accompany our partners to coach them in the use of this software. It's a non-call service, so if they have problems, they just call and get coached on how to address the problem. Another thing is that they were asked by clients, can you do this? And they didn't know how much to charge because they didn't develop a price structure for their services. And this is still something which is growing, because by trial and errors you find out how much you have to charge. And this is part of the assets you have as an enterprise when you know the price you can charge. When you are the only provider, then I mean, it's not so difficult. When there are other enterprises competing on the market, you must know exactly how much it costs to you. There is general lack of evidence of cost effectiveness of drone-based advisory services for small-scale farmers. I mean, the big industrial estates, they invest in drone technology, they know the cost, they know the returns. But when it comes to small-scale farmers, it's a challenge. And for that, CTA funded 4 research projects, one in Rwanda, one in Benin, one in Burkina, and one in Ghana. The data are now trickling in, and we have preliminary results which indicate that there is an increase in productivity and an increase of net income when following drone-based advice. These were the first research project. I'm sure that in implementing these research projects, our partners have learned. We involved universities, we involved research institutions in doing that, but I advocate and I recommend this kind of research project to be repeated until there is a robust evidence of cost and benefit for the technology. Then the companies had lack of capital to buy and invest in new drones and so on, but this is part of the business. And I must say that when I learned that Charis was offering services in all these different sectors, diversified, then they told me, yes, we have X drones. I don't know how many, 20 drones with 20 different sensors, because you need a drone and a sensor for a specific purpose. And then probably you need a backup drone, because if the first one breaks down, you have to have a second one. So these were the main challenges. We try to address them either from an institutional perspective, influencing policy. We have been quite vocal on social media, on regulations. I've had the opportunity also to participate in ICAO meetings. We assisted the African Union in coming up with the recommendation on deployment of drones for agriculture. And then again, I think that the key of success of these enterprises is that now, after 3 years of partnership, they can run alone. They don't need me, they don't need CTA. They are self-sustaining, we can walk away and they go. And they are all under an umbrella, Africa Goes Digital, which is an African-run industry association. The directors are all Africans, and they are now fundraising to offer the members the opportunity to build capacity, to build further capacities. They will help them in networking and so on. So these are the challenges, and these are the ways we tried to overcome the challenges.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask you a few general questions to the entire panel. You've all talked about how your organizations are making inroads in really accelerating drone technology across the continent, specifically in agriculture. But we all know that most of the farmers in agriculture are smallholder or subsistence farmers. What do you say to people who say that, or who ask you the question, is this technology realistic at this point in time for most of the farmers that you're trying, whose farming livelihoods you're trying to improve through using this tech. What do you have to say to that? Eric, do you want to
like to go
start?
first? Yeah. So, I mean, in recent times, there've been a lot of, or there have been different types of drone technologies that has been customized for agriculture. But we at Akwamaya, we focused on spraying because this is something that farmers, whether small, big, or commercial, this is something that they can do away with. No farmer can cultivate their crops without applying pesticides or fertilizers. So it is something that every farmer calculates, when they are preparing for their season or whatever. So we focused on that because it's something that is the farmer definitely needs. And what we are doing at Akwamaya is that we are trying to help the farmer to get that service cheaper. So our drones, our drone is able to spray a hectare of land in 15 minutes. Which is way faster than what the farmer can do using the backpack sprayer or the boom sprayer. And also, the technology saves the farmer 50%, of the cost of the pesticides or fertilizer that they need. So our service, in a way, reduces, the cost that the farmer needs to bear in crop production. And so there have been a challenge, comparing the smallholder farmer to the commercial farmers and the ability for them to be able to pay for the service. But it is something that they already know and they already prepare for, so it's taken care of in a way.
Yes, so the question of the smallholder farmer adoption of these technologies is central, and it is, to be honest, not an easy question. Because the first thing we have to do is allow these farmers to adopt these technologies. Because when you talk to farmers, they will say to you, usually, if you can do something very simply, I don't need your machine learning algorithm to. If I can get a little margin difference or a little margin, I don't need your complex algorithm. And so you really have to show to him that he will win something using your technology. One of the ways we've talked about in order to make this adoption by the smallholder farmer is to go through how it works in Africa. For example, when you are in a big agricultural region and you have a big agribusiness there, we've noticed that usually that big agribusiness is somewhat in order to maintain some kind of social peace around her, because she has around her many smallholder farmers that sometimes even go to work for her, for harvest dates or when they need workforce to do fertilization. We've noticed that this agribusiness acts as a free consultant for those farmers. So usually they tell us that the farmers will call them and ask them, hey, how much fertilizer have you put? Have you noticed some kind of spreading disease? What will you do in order to eradicate it? What can you advise? They even sometimes provide them with the things they need. So we thought that one of the first things we need to do is use this first tunnel in order to make the adoption of the technology. So when the referent guy in the region uses a technology, automatically all the other guys are getting interested. And one of the solutions, obviously, for the smallholder farmers, that has 1-2 hectares, is to create clusters of these farmers. So this is something that they think about very naturally, creating clusters in order to provide them with one quick advice. So here comes also the rationale about the satellite use. So the drone is complementary to the satellite. It is a very important tool because it allows us very good resolutions, and it's necessary for us when we need to calibrate our models to the agroclimatic conditions of the region. But for scalability, the satellite is necessary for us because it will allow us to do 20,000 hectares at a time. So when we're talking about smallholder farmer, we can also see that the price of the service can be decreased using satellite because there are many satellite constellations. So ones that are free, for example, the Sentinel constellation from the European Space Agency, which allows 10-meter resolution, which is big but enough for field crops, not tree crops, but field crops. That is enough, and we can go higher in resolution and obviously higher in price. So those are the two things we see in order to get the solution to the smallholder. The third one is obviously through institutions. So that's one of the projects we've done in Ethiopia, where we've worked with the ATA, Agency for Agricultural Transformation. We've worked with them on a yield estimation project in order to help them evaluate the yield of the clusters of smallholder farmers they are creating, and to which they are providing many informations to help them improve their yields and improve their margins. And this yield estimation algorithm is a way for the Ethiopian government and ATA to follow the performance of these clusters.
Thank you very much, Hamza. Eric and Giacomo, the same question applies to you regarding smallholder farmers across the continent and the realistic aspect of using drone technology.
Sure. So as my colleague said, what I could add as well is the side of the cost-benefit analysis that needs to be really done and has been actually done. As Giacomo said, we worked on a project together that preliminary results are showing that actually there is an impact. There is an increase in yield and as well the net income, as he said. So using those evidence-based data, and you go to a farmer, a smallholder farmer, and you show them that actually this is working, then it really make them adopt that technology. In Rwanda, for example, in Musanze, where we are doing a lot of work for farmers, you could see that there is, in the beginning, there was a bit of skepticism, but now they are really embracing it. They are really happy about it. Not only those that we help, but actually other farmers who are even near them would come and just try to get the knowledge we've given those that we are helping and use them in their field. So you could see that it's spreading, it's becoming, I would say, contagious. And so there is actually that kind of hope that we are seeing, but it should be really based on the evidence of hard data to convince someone, because it's easy to have to be hyped by the technology, to be excited by the technology, but at the end of the day, if we don't see the benefit, if it's not backed by real evidence, then there is no, it becomes harder to adopt. So for us, another thing as well is this is type of high tech, you know, in the context of our farmers as well. So we need to be able to translate those terms and have approach that really goes down to their level, even integrated in their daily work, so that they understand it. Before, they used to think a drone is something, I don't know, they would call it different names, but now it's becoming really a part of their daily lives and their farming habits. So I believe it's a progressive approach. It's going to take time, but with the data behind it that really shows the impact, we're seeing that level of adoption of the technology with farmers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that one has to be honest and be knowledgeable that the technology is not for a subsistence small-scale farmer. The technology is for small-scale farmers who think commercial and who grow the same crop in contiguous areas. So you have crops which are ideal for that. Tea, for example, is grown by small-scale farmer on large areas. Paddy rice, same. So wheat, and there are interventions by government, like in Rwanda, the crop intensification program, like in Kenya, the cluster program, in Ethiopia, the cluster program, where government is incentivizing farmers to plant at the same time, the same crop with the same variety. Why? The idea is to facilitate mechanization. But mechanization goes hand in hand with the deployment of drone technology, because a drone operator won't drive 50 kilometers to fly half a hectare. It's not economically viable. A drone operator will drive 50 kilometers to fly 100 hectares. And there you have to have 100 farmers, assuming they have 1 hectare plot each. And so the clients of the drone operators are automatically agribusinesses, large cooperatives, okay, or areas which are benefiting from support from donor agencies. But the ultimate conclusion of what we have been learning in these 3 years of project implementation is that you have to look for farmers, for cropping systems which are ideal for the deployment of the technology. And 2 weeks ago, I received an email from Charis saying the farmers are asking for drone-based advice for the next season. And I was super happy, because that's a demand coming from the farmers. But this is a cooperative of farmers. It's not the farmer. The medium-scale, large-scale farmer, he or she will ask for the service. The small-scale farmers, provided they are in a group, then they can ask and pay for it. They won't pay for that, because farmers try not to be willing to pay, okay? But if it is a cooperative, if it is an agribusiness, they usually provide advanced crop inputs. And the farmer is meant to pay that back at the end of the season in the form, either in cash or in the form of product. That the second option is the best one. And so the drone-based advisory service can be embedded into that cost. So people won't feel it. It is part of the overall cost. It's part of the agronomic advice provided by the agribusiness and by the cooperative. So these are the lessons we learned in the process, and there are signs that it is taking up. And yeah, I think we should build on these kind of lessons.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just open this session. We just have a couple of minutes left. To the audience members, if you have any questions or additional comments to those that this panel has given. If you just raise your hand, and we have a roaming microphone that can be availed to you. Questions or comments from the audience? Yes, there's a gentleman at the corner.
Hello, my name's Paul Georgie. I'm the founder of GeoGeo, which is an international development and GIS consultancy based in Scotland. We predominantly work with rural development, both home and across the continent. I have to admit that coming into this meeting, I was very hopeful that we would hear more about the use of drones for empowering smallholder farmers, and I'm glad that it did get a mention as well. But I just wanted to ask the panel, in terms of a timeline where we see an area where smallholder farmers can actually adopt these technologies for themselves, and particularly the role of the young workforce, which we see both here and back home as well, where we're trying to encourage people not to move into the cities for work, but actually showing them that modern technology can be applicable to modern farming. And I guess smallholder farmers should be the primary focus because of the overarching emphasis that commercial farming shouldn't really, and monoculture shouldn't really have a future if you're considering things with a changing climate.
A couple of more questions. Yes, there's a gentleman right here at the front.
Thank you very much. My name is Seda from IATA, International Air Transport Association. Just two questions, if Eric or Hamza can comment. You talked about paddy rice, and you talked about using drones, but back home we've got an experience with birds. You know, when you're just about to harvest, these birds just rain havoc on the harvest. And is there anybody working on this? And the second question is more related to aviation, since we're in aviation, on wildlife control at the airports. I've seen situations where, birds are a threat to flight, you know that, and they kind of impact it has is just tremendous. So I've seen situations where we want to chase out the birds, they just fly a little bit and then they come back. You fly a little bit and they come back. And to avoid this kind of thing, have you applied the technology in wildlife control, perhaps? If you can comment on those two. Thank you very much.
To the panelists, the two questions? Three questions, actually. Yeah. Yes, Eric.
Yeah. Okay. The first question. No, let me first answer the second question. Okay, so yeah, we at Aquamaya Drone Tech, we have developed a drone that scares birds, like he said, especially on rice farms. It's still in development. We have tried the solution a couple of times, and we are trying to understand the birds. It's very true that you can scare the birds, they go away, but they come back again. So last year, we were able to develop a technology, a couple of sounds that works on the brains of the birds, that when they hear that specific sound in the particular area for a couple of times, you can't do it once. You need to fly the drones and make the sounds for about a week or two. And when these birds hear the sounds in this particular area for this period of time, they automatically, know that this place has the sounds, and they go and they never come back. So we tried, first of all, so when you have about 1,000 birds coming to the farm, it will reduce in a week. After you finish the whole process in a week, the 1,000 birds will reduce to about 200 birds. The only problem is that those particular birds that the sound has worked on will not come back, but new birds, will have to come back. So it should be a continuous process. So the solution is there. We've tried it. It's working. The challenge right now is how to price it to the farmers, or what we are going to do next. So yeah, we are piloting it still in Ghana, and we are hoping to get a very good result that we can send outside. With the issue of the airports also, a company that I'm working with in Germany has developed a solution that also scares birds specifically for airports. And yeah, so there are solutions for this kind of things.
Yes.
Regarding the first question, there's something that Giacomo said that is very true, is that for the smallholder farmer to date, it is complicated for him to get this service, but even, we've been to agricultural forums, and we've tried to present the solution to smallholder farmers, and the problematic is that they automatically think this is a service that is not for them. It is not for them because they are smallholder, they have 1 hectare, they have 1 or 2 hectares. It is not for them because they think it is pricey. It is not for them because they think the technology required is too complicated. I think that it can be done through the different ways I've talked to the different ways I talked about in my previous speech, but what is important to see is that the solution is really accessible for smallholder farmers. Just to give you an idea about the prices, for example, when we're talking about wheat fields and cereals, our solution is around 10 euros per hectare, approximately. And from the tests we've done regarding the value added, if we combine fertilization and irrigation, the farmers win around 80 euros per hectare. So it is really accessible, and they can really get a good value added from it. The solution to that, I think, in order to give this solution to the smallholder, is the clusterization, like what's been done in Ethiopia. And this is more of a government and institution push. And then we will be able to provide the solution at a larger scale to these farmers.
Yeah, I really get that you're saying they strengthen numbers in terms of cooperatives and agribusinesses. Giacomo, Eric, would you like to respond?
Yeah. The first provocative question about empowerment. I've been working on participatory development for many years. And the technology now, I mean, you can't imagine a farmer having half a hectare, buying a drone and making the crop diagnostic. It's impossible now. The same with phones. I mean, maybe in 10 years' time there will be drones and algorithms, everything embedded into a chip, and they can do that. But nowadays, no. So they have to rely on technology intermediaries. You mentioned the issue of youth. These companies have grown in 4 or 5 years, in 4 or less years. Now you have 16 employees? 25, sorry. All in the youth category. Sovit, how many you have?
13.
They were incorporated in November 2018, have 13 employees. Are they all within the youth bracket?
Sorry?
Are they all below 35 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. And Eric, what about your team in Ghana?
22.
22?
Yeah.
Age break?
Between 22 and 30 years.
So the answer is, since the youth likes technology, the rural youth as well, okay? I remember here in Kigali in 2013, we organized the ICT for Ag conference. And Honorable Kalibata, in her closing speech, she said, ICTs makes agriculture sexy. And she was right. The kids, if they are given the opportunity to embed in the agricultural operation technology, they are happy to run the agricultural operations and stay in the rural areas. And we have seen that all across. I've been monitoring the growth of these enterprises in terms of employment. Those who are generating revenues and so on are growing very fast, and generally employment is done within the youth bracket. 30%, 35% are women. Contracts are no longer short-term contracts, project-based contracts, but medium-term, long-term contracts. So this means that this technology helps youth getting a job, getting an exciting job, because frankly speaking, it is exciting, okay, innovative, unique, distinguishing them from others. And it is really attractive. So when it comes to employment, it is a winning technology. When it comes to monoculture, you mentioned monoculture. In Ethiopia, they support the development of clusters in the range of 50 hectares. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So, which doesn't mean that you have 10,000 hectares of wheat, because one cluster can grow wheat, the other cluster can grow teff, the other cluster can grow another crop. And I think that government is fully aware that monocropping is not beneficial for biodiversity and for many other things. So I think that we should be aware of the history, we should be aware of the damage which certain practices like monoculture can cause to our environment, to biodiversity, and to sustainability. And this is a government issue, government policy issue, that they try to make sure that these drawbacks of crop intensification are not harming the environment and the livelihood of the people.
Thank you very much. Eric, is there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, just a quick one. For the first question, in terms of the adoption of the technology, on top of what all my colleagues have said, I think my wish is that more companies in the drone who are serving the farmers should not immediately trying to force that adoption in a blind way. I believe there should be more data, more, as Giacomo said, more studies to show that actually this is working. There is a benefit if as Hamza said, how much are they gaining, the added value, and then the more we do that, the more we are backed with solid data across all the operators, across all the companies developing this solution, then it will be easier for the farmer to adopt that technology. So even any technology before, the adoption was previously hard until the benefits were repeated and backed by the data. So for me, it's that angle that I think will be really beneficial in taking this to another level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We I think 5 more minutes?
'Cause
3 more minutes, right. 3 more minutes. One last question to the gentleman here before I hand over to the panel to close.
Merci. Je vous laisse 30 secondes pour mettre vos casques. Merci. Mon nom est Farbo Diouf. Je suis de l'aviation civile du Sénégal. Et je suis très intéressé par le processus d'autorisation. J'aimerais savoir la durée moyenne que vous avez pour obtenir l'autorisation auprès de l'aviation civile et éventuellement les difficultés que vous rencontrez avec l'aviation civile.
Je vais répondre en français du coup.
S'il vous plaît, je pose la dernière question.
Oui.
Voilà. J'ai vu qu'il y a 2 domaines qui se rencontrent, l'agriculture et l'aviation. Bon, sans rentrer dans le domaine de l'interprétation des données. Maintenant, quand vous vous lancez dans ces startups, qu'est-ce que vous avez comme expérience? Qu'est-ce que vous avez comme compétence? De l'aviation ou bien spécialiste en agriculture? Merci.
Alors, pour la question sur les autorisations, en fait, ça dépend vraiment des pays dans lesquels on opère. On opère dans beaucoup de pays. Il y a des pays où ça se passe mieux que d'autres. Il y a même des régions dans certains pays où ça se passe mieux que d'autres. Par exemple, au Maroc, on a pas mal d'opérations. Il y a des régions où on peut obtenir des autorisations en 5 jours. Et d'autres où ça peut prendre jusqu'à 15 jours, 3 semaines pour des raisons sécuritaires. En général, toujours la raison est sécuritaire. Quand on a été en Éthiopie sur l'importation des drones avec la CTA, ça a pris pas mal de temps également. Donc c'est vraiment des choses qui vont dépendre des pays et de votre, on va dire, positionnement dans le pays. Il faut connaître les bonnes personnes, savoir à qui déposer les autorisations. Ce qui est dommage, c'est que les processus ne sont pas toujours harmonisés. Donc, parfois, il faut la déposer au ministère de l'Intérieur, parfois, il faut la déposer à l'aviation civile. Donc, c'est un peu la complexité qu'on retrouve dans ça. Et pour répondre à votre deuxième question, donc quand on travaille en agriculture, en fait, on fait donc de la télédétection et de l'agriculture. Moi, personnellement, j'ai un background en télédétection et on a évidemment des agronomes dans la société et en propre, on fait de la production aussi. Enfin, dans mon cas, au Maroc, d'une famille un peu agricole, donc c'est un peu ce qui m'a amené vers cette spécialisation aussi.
Thank you very much, and I hope the gentleman's question has been answered. Great. So we've come to the end of the panel. I would just like for you to give closing remarks, very brief remarks, short sentences, if I may, on what you think the future holds for drone technology in agriculture on the African continent. Very, very brief remarks. And I'll start with the order with which you began. So Eric, Hamza, Eric, and then Giacomo. Very briefly.
Well, I think, in my opinion, I think that the solution has been very helpful to farmers, and that we need support. You know, the donor agencies, whatever, should come to the aid of the drone technology companies to help us to expand. You know, so because if we will be able to reduce the cost to the farmers and make it accessible to the smallholder farmers, then it means that, you know, we need to expand to where they are to take away the transportation cost and all those things to reduce the cost of the service for the farmers to do. So, yeah, we are calling for the help support. Support. Yeah.
Thank you, Hamza.
Actually, I think that the drones have really dynamized all these fields. So, for example, at Sowit, we came through the drones at first, then we thought about scaling. But the drones allowed us to use multispectral cameras over fields, so which was not something you could think of before. You had to use real, otherwise than satellite, you had to use real planes. It really gave also great opportunity to the guys doing topography work and mining work, because it helped them, streamline their operations and be very quick and very cost efficient. So I think that the drones really helped kickstart and dynamize this industry and in agriculture. I think that in the future, we hope that there will be a better harmonization of these regulations. So that's something we've talked about yesterday. We'll talk about it again. I think we're in a good way. Lots of people are talking about it. Lots of people are trying to find a way to harmonize it. For us, it's very important because we work in agriculture. So if we don't get the authorization to fly by the date of the stage we need to fly in, the season is dead for us. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges we will be facing. The second one, which is more on a more technical point of view, the drones will get better in terms of autonomy, in terms of range, in terms of sensors they can embark. So for now, we have some multispectral cameras, which are the cameras we use to develop our advice. I think that all the drone technology also helped kickstart the sensor and the sensor field. Because more and more companies are developing multispectral cameras with better bands, seeing much wider wavelengths. So I think that the whole ecosystem is growing. I think we will see some great things in the future in terms of hardware and software, and I hope that it will help Africa provide for itself regarding all the durable intensification challenge the world will be facing.
Thank you very much, Hamza. Eric?
Yeah, so I think there is a reason to be excited about drone technology in agriculture. And we can already see that, that impact. But the more effort, as I mentioned earlier, more funding, more initiatives should be focused, I think, on still perfecting the technology, but also showing the impact in terms of data, in terms of numbers, because numbers speak for themselves. So, and also we're seeing the youth, as Giacomo mentioned, that are now being excited now to come back to the agriculture in different ability, in different areas, because they're coming in with even different skills to help the agriculture sector, which is, one of the most important sector in the world. So we are seeing that shift in understanding from the youth as well, coming in back in with their skills to make sure that we are producing more as a continent. So there is reason to be excited. There is more work to be done. So in short, that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Eric. Giacomo, very briefly.
I think that Hamza touched on one key aspect. I mean, the decrease in investment needed. I mean, an EB with a multispectral sensor 5 years ago was $30,000. The equivalent craft now with a similar sensors is $6,000. But now new drones are more performing, more enduring, better sensors, and so on. I think that people sitting in this room will play a role in answering your question, because the regulators can create enabling or disabling environments. And for agriculture, we are talking about agriculture. And the African Union report suggests and recommends to give a special treatment to operators serving agriculture. Why? Because and humanitarian aid. Why agriculture? Because agriculture is the poor sector. Doesn't pay much. I mean, the mining sector, they pay a lot for the services, the surveying as well, and so on. The agricultural sector is a sector which generates less revenue for the operators. And so if you impose very high fees for licensing and so on, I know, for example, in South Africa, fees are rocket high, very, very high, okay? And in other countries, they are less. But also making a differentiation on the kind of services the operator is providing and giving some sort of stimulus to those who are providing services in the agricultural sector could be instrumental in making the industry grow rapidly. Remember that this meets some of the stringent needs to retain youth in the rural areas, to give them employment, to give them exciting employment, rewarding employment. And you regulators, you play a key role in that. And you may not be very familiar with the agricultural sector because you are familiar with the sky, what happens in the sky, but what happens in the sky influences what happens on the ground. And these small machines, which can be used for good and bad, okay, should be controlled, I fully agree, but serve also an opportunity for employment for the benefit of the African youth. So think about that.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to this panel. I may ask you to take your seats and hand over to George.
Right. You can stand. Diana, you can sit. Please stand and still wait there for a moment. Okay? While she brings the bags, and Diana, if you can please give them out to the rest of the panelists. One thing I must say, it was a lovely panel, lovely discussion. I got confused this last minute. Go ahead, why don't you do that? I'm just talking to the audience. My confusion is short sentences. And I was looking for the short sentences as you gave the final discussion. I didn't see the full stop, you know. So, but anyway, at least the definition of short sentence, we'll try and figure it out. Thank you very much. Please come down. A big hand for them.